You ever have one of those times where you see gameplay of some random game and it looks so cool that you're like, I have got to play that? That's what happened to me with Bloodthief here. I'd never heard of this game before until I think someone on my stream mentioned it, so I looked it up and saw gameplay of it and immediately was like, yep, gotta get my hands on this. So I hit up the creator Blargus, and he was kind enough to send me a review code, and I have been having a ton of fun with Bloodthief. This is everything I'm looking for in this kind of game. But before we move on, I do want to quickly apologize if this video isn't too great looking, because as you can see, this game's real fast, but it's also real dark, and it has very detailed, busy textures on a lot of the environment. So when that starts moving pretty fast, it turns into a bitrate and compression nightmare. I've done my best to try to make it look pretty decent, but YouTube is gonna do its thing, so apologies if the game is a bit more blocky and pixely looking than it's already supposed to be. Anyway, Bloodthief, what is this game? This is a hardcore, fast-paced 3D action platformer with an emphasis on speedrunning. Literally could not be more my jam if it tried. I love these kinds of games. I love movement. I love going fast. I love games that are very in-depth and very challenging, and Bloodthief is all of this and more. Like the title of this video says, this game has a lot of movement options. It has like every mechanic from every video game you've ever played ever. It's a very derivative game. It's clearly heavily inspired by lots of games that have come before, and sometimes that can result in a game feeling like it doesn't really have an identity of its own, doesn't really have something that sets it apart. It can kind of just feel like a rehashing of things you've already seen in other games, and it doesn't really have anything unique to offer. But thankfully, that's not really a problem here in Bloodthief. While it is very similar to many other games, it takes all these elements from these games and puts them together in a way that's all very cohesive and just incredibly well done. Take, for example, the wall run. This is an extremely common mechanic that you see in almost every game these days, and it works very similarly to lots of other games too, like Titanfall or Ghost Runner. But what this wall run has that a lot of other games don't is that if you go into the wall run with a ridiculous amount of speed, you will preserve that and go much farther along the wall, and you'll be able to jump off it and carry that speed into a really long distance jump. That then ties together with, say, the slide, which is another very common mechanic we've seen in a lot of other games, again, like Titanfall, or it's also in Ultra Kill. And with the slide, it gives you a little speed boost and lets you maintain that speed, so you can do like a sequence of slide jumps and go faster and faster with each one. You can also slide down slopes to build speed, and the angle of the terrain that you're on will affect the way that you jump. So if you are going uphill and jump, then you'll get some extra height. That functions kinda like the slope physics of the Sonic games, and similarly, there's also the air dash, which is kinda like a souped-up homing attack from those games, where you aim at an enemy and you'll lock onto them, and then you hit the button and you fly directly toward them and kill them. But again, Bloodthief's version of this mechanic has more to it than other games we've seen it in, because what happens after you do the air dash is different depending on the circumstances and what you as the player do. If you do it to a grounded enemy and you just do the air dash, then you'll come to a stop once you hit them. But if you do it on an airborne enemy, then you will continue on the path you were flying on, which introduces that element of like lining yourself up with the enemy to launch in the direction you want. But on grounded enemies, there's something else you can do that's even cooler. You can transition right from the air dash directly into a slide, and this will preserve the speed from the air dash into your slide, letting you go way faster. But also, interestingly, a cool property of the slide is that it will redirect all of your momentum to whatever direction you're facing, which is different than when you're airborne. When you're flying through the air, you have to respect the momentum, whereas on the ground, you can basically turn around 180 instantly and keep all of your speed while doing so. This plays very well off the air dash because while you're going toward the enemy, you can turn in another direction, and as soon as you hit them, you'll shoot off. There's a lot of nuance to these mechanics, and maybe now you're seeing what I was saying, how while these are all very familiar systems, the ways they play off each other makes for a very unique and incredibly fun experience. And that's not even all the moves that you have. There's also this ground pound you can do, which again, very common mechanic, seen it in lots of games, but you can do a lot of different things with this ground pound. You can jump when you hit the ground and get a really big high jump, or you can do a slide after and get a bunch of speed, or even better yet, do a slide jump, and that launches you off insanely fast. Even the frickin' ledge grab has advanced tech to it because you can press jump while doing it to launch yourself forward with whatever speed you had prior to doing the ledge grab. And oh yeah, there's also an exploding crossbow that you can use to rocket jump. That's in this game too. And there's so much more, but I can't get into the minutia of every single mechanic in this game, or we will be here forever. The point is, this game is awesome. It has so many great movement mechanics that really play off each other in fantastic ways. It makes for a very complex game where you can't just rely on one mechanic that dominates the whole thing. You really do have to utilize the whole kit here to the fullest, which I love. The only thing this game is missing is a grappling hook. One thing I really want to praise is the level design. It is both excellent while being extremely varied and not really like much else I've played before. Apparently, the design of this game took a lot of influence from the original Quake, but I've never played that, I'm not familiar with it, so it kind of just felt very, new and different to me. One of the things I found really interesting about the levels of Bloodthief is that there seems to be no rules about what a Bloodthief level is. Every stage in this game feels like it came from an idea, like Blargus just had a cool idea for a cool level, and he just made that. Because of this, every level kind of has its own vibe, its own feel, its own flow. You know, some of them might just be straightforward obstacle courses beginning to end. Other levels can be a little bit more maze-like, and they have locked doors, you gotta go around and collect keys, you maybe gotta do a little bit of backtracking even. Other levels have big combat encounters that you gotta just stay in this big arena and fight all the enemies to continue forward. Some levels can be massive, whereas others can be fairly small in terms of space because they have you wrapping around an area multiple times as you climb higher and higher or open up different pathways. There's precisely one level that's basically a collectathon. You start essentially at the end of it, but you have to go around and collect 3 keys to get access to it, so it's a much more open-ended, sandboxy kind of stage. I really love to see this kind of variety in the design here. It's very creative and different from what you see in a lot of other games. It never felt like I had this game figured out. I would go into every single level of Bloodthief having no idea what I was in for. On top of that, the game does an excellent job of utilizing all of its mechanics in basically every single interesting way you possibly could. Some of this comes just from the arrangements of the level design. They just throw cool stuff at you that makes you think about your tools in different ways. But some of this also comes from the different gimmicks they introduce over the course of the game that forces you to not utilize some of your tools or utilize them in different ways. For example, you have these wizard guys that put shields on the enemies, which means you can no longer air dash them. You could still kill them by other means, but the most effective and easiest tool for killing them has been locked out. Not only does that force you to use some of your other tools, but it also creates opportunities for interesting decision-making. Like if you're in a big combat arena and those shield guys are around, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna prioritize the shield guys so that way you can start air dashing again? Or are you gonna kill the enemies that he's providing a shield to, which will instantly kill him? Probably one of the coolest things that gets introduced that illustrates how well this game builds off of its own ideas is this blood crossbow, which shoots arrows that you can air dash to, which at first you're like, oh, that's cool, I can create my own little air dash points, but then you're like, wait a minute, I can air dash the arrow while it's flying through the air, and then you realize you can chain this together and essentially fly. However, that's limited by your blood meter there at the top. I haven't even talked about this yet. That's what allows you to do a lot of the more advanced moves in this game. Air dashing, sliding, ground pounding, all of it requires blood, which you get for killing enemies or grabbing these pickups. So now you also have to think about routing keeping your blood up into your strategy. Blood also doubles as your health, so if you take a hit, that takes away some of your options, which that alone is interesting. But it also means you can think about how much blood do you want to spend on movement to have an extra hit point so you can afford to make a mistake later down the road. It's just such a well thought out game. It feels like every aspect of this game's design, the mentality that went into it was whatever is the most fun, that's what we're doing. And can I just take a bit to talk about combat in this game? Because it's awesome. This, in my opinion, is the best possible way to do combat in a platformer, because the combat and the platforming are not two separate things. They are one in the same. You kill enemies all the time as part of the platforming, and when you go into the dedicated combat arenas, you use all of your platforming tools in the exact same ways you would, just in a different context. Now, instead of trying to get to the end of an obstacle course, your goal is to kill everything in the space, and you're using all this interesting movement to get around, to avoid attacks, and to execute your plan for how you're going to deal with all these enemies, because you die in just a couple of hits at max. So a big part of these combat arenas can be throwing yourself into them and getting killed almost instantly, and then you're like, okay, don't do that, and you go in, you adjust your strategy, you try again, you get a little bit further, and then you realize what other mistake you made, and over the course of it, you figure out what is an effective strategy for most efficiently taking out the enemies, dealing with the big threats, and that is the exact same thing you do when you're trying to route out levels to get good times. You play the level over and over, experiment, see what works, see what doesn't. Like I said, same gameplay, just a different context. It's brilliant. And I also just love the kinetic energy of the combat here. It feels like I'm a pinball, and the arena's a big pinball table that I'm bouncing around. Killing the enemies is how I score points. And just like with the platforming, they create lots of interesting arena designs, they play around with the enemy types well, all the enemy types have slightly different strategies that you need to employ. You know, different arenas provide you with different things, maybe you get a crossbow and you can utilize that. Basically, there is amazing design no matter where you look in this game. Everything works so incredibly well. I am very, very impressed by what a solo developer was able to accomplish here. Another thing, I was kind of surprised how much I enjoyed in this game was getting collectibles. I'm normally not the biggest fan of collectibles in like linear action games like this, because it often requires you to stop, slow down, and carefully look around for where all the secrets might be hidden. Whereas in a game like this, I want to go fast, I want to fly through the stages, it feels like you're getting in the way of what I want to be doing. But here, I find it works, thanks to a couple of things. One being, one of the weapons you get is like a staff that glows as you get close to secrets, so you're not completely blind. It has something to help you out find where these are. And usually stuff like that I think is a really, really big help, so that way the player can just go forward, and then they get a notification like, hey, something's in the area, so maybe look around. Much better than having to check around every single corner or whatever. But I think the other thing that really helped with this is that a lot of the collectibles are hidden either in very obvious places where you're just going to see them and it's just a challenge to go for them, or they teach you where shortcuts are. Take this one level here in the sewer. Until I started looking for collectibles, I had no idea that you could go to this far right pipe, which houses a speed power-up, something that'll enable me to complete the level more quickly. So actually looking for secrets is fueling my ability to fly through these stages even faster. Again, reminds me quite a bit of Sonic, actually, especially the original games where you'd have to route the stages very heavily around the speed shoes, learning where they are and utilizing that extra speed to go really fast. Same kind of thing here, but now having secrets that point you to these things, I think is a brilliant idea. Speaking of collectibles, one of the main things you get in this game is new weapons, each one having some different ability or effect that it gives you. One will increase your maneuverability through the air, you get more precise control, whereas one will give you a double jump, or one will make it so you get more blood from killing enemies, or one will make it so your blood doesn't drain over time, or one will let you air dash to enemies from a much greater distance. It's a cool little system that adds an extra layer to when you're trying to speedrun these levels, like trying to pick what's the right tool for the job, what's the right weapon that will give you the fastest clear time. Though I do find that maybe the scythe is a little bit too good. It kind of overrides a lot of the other options. Like, why would I ever pick the thing that gives me a double jump when the scythe lets me do an air dash in any direction, which can also function like a double jump? As you've been seeing in my footage, the scythe was what I found to be most useful in most situations, but honestly, I didn't really experiment that much. I'm sure when you're like really high level and really going for good times, there are different use cases for different things. But I guess now actually talking about speedrunning, time attacking, whatever you want to call it, going for good times in this game. That to me is the meat and potatoes of this experience. That's what I really love about these kinds of games. And I loved it here as well. It's super fun. This game already has like great mechanics and design, and running these levels, trying to learn what you can do, trying to learn the fastest routes, practicing, executing it all, was a total blast. And there's a lot of like cool like built-in shortcuts for you to find using the different tools in different ways. Like again, this game just builds off of all of its systems incredibly well. I'm no like pro speedrunner or anything. There's some super advanced mechanics here that I suck too much to utilize that I just don't bother with. So this game can go way, way faster than what I'm showing here, but even at my level, this game is insanely fun to get good at. And of course, like any good speed-focused game like this, there are medals you can be awarded for achieving certain times, so you have something to aim for. Plus it does that thing that I really like, where it has 3 medals that it shows you, but there's a secret 4th medal if you can beat the developer's time. I always love stuff like that. And I'll happily say, I am not good enough to get all the Godkiller medals in this game. There were a number of stages that I just could not beat that time. And I think that's awesome. Like, I love seeing games where the skill ceiling is way above what I'm able to achieve. For people that really, really want to get into this game, there's so much to dig into. This game also makes running these levels and practicing effortless thanks to its one-button instant restart, and it's that good shit with an instant restart where there's no, like, animation or nothing. It is instant-fucking-taneous, exactly how it should be. It also has 2 different reset buttons, one for just going back to the most recent checkpoints, and one for completely resetting the stage and the timer. Perfect for practicing. It's so good. And it's also one of the numerous ways in which this game is quite similar to Cloud Built, which, under the extremely likely chance you have no idea what Cloud Built is, that is my personal favorite 3D action speedrun platformer, and it's got a lot of overlap with this game in terms of its design and the features, especially when you get to parts of this game where there's a lot of wall running and no solid ground, and you get those pickups to refill your blood meter and keep you going. Feels very, very Cloud Built, which makes me very happy, and I'd recommend checking out Cloud Built. If Bloodthief is up your alley, I guarantee you'd love that game as well. I only have 2 real major criticisms. One, the controller support for this game is pretty bad, and I know people are going to be like, why are you playing a game like this on controller? What's wrong with you? I just find it more comfortable. Get off my back. But the menus are extremely clunky with a controller. They have a lot of problems. And the default control scheme is some whack garbage. You can tell that the creator of this game maybe not the most experienced with console games and playing on controller. Thankfully, you can rebind the buttons, but at least at the time of making this video, you can't rebind the triggers, so that's a bit of a problem. My other issue is I don't like how the stomp slide jump works. The move itself is cool, but the functionality of it is very problematic. This became a real problem when I was playing the like endgame bonus secret levels that you get that are meant to teach you the ultra advanced mechanics. It feels like the parameters that influence how this move is going to behave are maybe overly precise. Sometimes when you use this move, you'll launch off crazy fast. Other times, you won't get as much speed. Sometimes it will completely override your existing momentum and launch you forward. Other times, it won't. Sometimes it launches you just forward. Other times, it gives you a bunch of height. Sometimes it launches you downward. And I'm sure this is consistent. I'm sure there are factors that determine all these different things, but I couldn't really figure them out. It seemed like maybe I got more speed from a slide jump if I jumped as soon as I hit the ground, like even a couple of frames will make you lose some speed, I think. Getting that extra height, I assume, comes from the game thinking I'm holding the button to try to get a high jump, like maybe I'm pressing it at the wrong time and it's registering that way. Going downward seems to be when you're at the very edge of a platform, so I suspect maybe they're like curved slightly or something like that. That's the problem. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, because to me, it feels like I'm doing the exact same thing and getting different results, which made me get stuck on this level for a very long time and get very frustrated, not because it was hard, but because it felt like I was playing roulette on whether or not this move wanted to do the thing that I need it to do. So yeah, those are my two quote-unquote major criticisms for Bloodthief. Neither of those is even really that big of a deal. Aside from those things, this game is freaking awesome, highly recommended, I love it. I guess I can briefly talk about the aesthetics of this game, the visuals, the music, all that. I don't really have that much to say. I think it's a good-looking game, you know, doing the retro thing, looking like an old-school PC game. I don't personally have any nostalgia for those games. I wasn't playing PC stuff at that time. But I do think the game looks really good. Lots of good atmosphere. The music is really kick-ass here. They have nice vistas sometimes. And one thing I want to mention that I find kind of interesting about this game is I've never played a game that is so happy to let you go out of bounds. It is not difficult at all to get behind walls and under the level. It feels like it's very embraced, actually, and I kind of like that. It makes it feel very, like, I don't know, authentic, handcrafted. The fact that you can just, like, go behind the curtain and see what's actually going on. It makes it feel like a video game. It makes it feel like it's not some world that you're a part of. It makes it feel like a game. I'd say it's very charming, actually. You probably wouldn't think of a game like this as charming, with its dark atmosphere and all the blood and monsters and rock music. But no, that is the word I want to use. It's a game made by one guy. This is what he wanted to make. This is what he thought was cool. He put it together himself, and you can see it. You can see the effort. You can see the vision. You can see it all come together, and I think it's real nice.